Ghost activity, fringe science, interdimensional beings, psychic phenomenon, and conspiracy theories. Does the truth exist? How close are we to finding it? Come listen and discover the answers yourself. Welcome to the Paranormal MD, where the out of the ordinary is discussed weekly. Join your host, Mary Marshall, and her guest as they inform, discuss, and entertain you. Mary welcomes your input during the program, so call in and let your opinions and voice be heard. Talk radio just got weirder, wiser, and more interesting. Now, here is your host of the Paranormal MD Radio Show, Mary Marshall.
And welcome to the Paranormal MD. I'm Mary Marshall, your host, and it is my pleasure to be here with all of you tonight. Thanks for joining me. The guest tonight is Robin Modaffare, who holds a master's degree in religion and a PhD in philosophy, as well as being a licensed minister. Many of her gifts include healing, shamanism, channeling, and mediumship. But some of the things I'm really interested in talking to her about tonight have to do with her other areas of expertise and practice, which is in soul retrieval, angelology, ascension, the Merkava, and which is, there's so many things, astral travel, but we'll get into those things with her a little bit later on in the broadcast. One thing I would love to do is to personally invite those of you who are listening and are not in the chat room to come and join us in the chat room right now. It's slowly filling up in there. Usually does over the first 5 minutes or 10 minutes or so. So come and check it out. You're there with people who are listening to the show just like you, have the same interest. And if you're a little shy, you can always pose your questions and ask them in the chat room there. And your chat master, Pam, will relay those questions to me for you. So if you're shy about calling, that's a great way to do it. And now, for something that is exciting announcement for me, I invite anyone in the northern Illinois area and surrounding states, and even beyond, if you want to make the trip even beyond, come out and meet me and Wisconsin paranormal investigators at Illinois State Park, Illinois State. Well, I almost am speaking English this evening at Illinois Beach Resort in Zion, Illinois. It is a meet and greet. There is going to be a workshop in which WPI will be showing you various pieces of equipment, how it works. I will also be speaking there. And afterwards, there's also dinner, and afterwards we're going to be doing an investigation there. So I really encourage you to come out for that. And you can book a room there too. It's an investigation, so it's going to go into the wee hours of the night. So you more than likely would want to do that. So that's the number to call for that. And to learn out more about everything that's going on and ticket prices, you can go to the Paranormal MD radio show homepage at the website there. It's posted, and that the paranormalmdradio.com. And if I can continue to keep speaking here, I want to introduce you now to your chat master, Pam. Pam, hello, Pam. Hello? Oh, well, I'm not sure what's going on, or for sure if I'm even being heard, but I'm just going to keep forging through. At any rate, I wanted to tell all of you, besides all this, is some of the things that we're going to be going over here tonight, having to do with Robin when she comes on, is that I apologize for all my stuttering and stammering. Again, I am going to totally blame this on cold medication. You may have noticed, for those who are regular listeners, by the sound of my voice, I have just been sick as a dog, and apparently there's been a lot of things going around for a lot of people. I'm going to, blame the craziness again on my cold medication kind of fogging up my head. And trust me, it is. At any rate, though, one of the things I think what I'm going to do right now is I personally am having a connection issue in which I cannot hear Pam. So I'm just going to go right into what I would normally be doing at this time. And you guessed it, that's right. It is time for Weird World News and what you didn't know. And unfortunately, as soon as we can get a better connection with Pam, hopefully she'll join us for some stories here tonight, because it's always so much more fun to share. One of the things that I wanted to start off with tonight is, okay, it's not exactly a news story per se, but I was watching a show that I recorded, and it's titled Sex Sent Me to the ER. Yep, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Mary, but honestly,
Mary.
Hello. Hi, Pam. You've joined us.
Hi.
Hi.
Yes, I could hear you, but apparently you couldn't hear me, because I'm like, I'm here. I'm right here.
I could not. And I was stuttering and stammering and trying to text and trying to talk, and now I'm glad you joined us, because it's always so much more fun to share this with you, and I'm sure for everybody else too. All right, so you missed where I started with, because you have no idea that this was coming. I said, one of the things that I wanted to start off with is that besides the fact that I'm going to have my finger on a mute button, so if you hear temporary pauses, that means I'm having to cough, and I'm saving you, the listeners, from having your eardrums blown out. So,
okay.
I saw it, and see, you didn't even notice. Did you just notice? I just did it, so I could do it. So anyway, I was watching a show that I recorded, and the show is titled Sex Sent Me to the ER. And I know, because I know it said the same thing that I just said to the listeners, that I know what you're thinking. But so you know, I only wanted to watch the show because both sex and hospital ER are science related. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So anyway, I'm watching this show. It does definitely qualify under weird news, though, that she proceeded to afterwards have just stay in and continue to have an orgasm for the next 3.5 hours straight. Like totally full, real, there. So now, most people think, oh, there's probably a lot of guys out there, oh, cool. No, not so much. 3.5 hours later, you probably want to blow your head off. You're just like, please make this stop. Yes, I'm exhausted. I'm meant in it. She did claim it was just emotionally and mentally, besides physically, exhausting. But at any rate, she landed up because she didn't want to go to the hospital. And I don't blame her.
Come on, would you?
It was so bad that by the time they did try to, get to the hospital, because she called a friend, his friend suggested to her that she take Benadryl, and that this may, because this is a friend who did chemistry or something, was claiming that this would change her body chemistry, and it may interrupt the chemicals processes that were going on in her body and brain and help stop this from happening. Well, it didn't. Pretty much at first for another, I think it was almost 90 minutes or something. But so they went to the ER, but he couldn't even get her dressed because, she was, in that moment. Toes curling, everything. I was just ridiculous. So they go to the ER. It just stopped by itself, and it about 3.5 hours, and they claim that it probably did have to do that. The antihistamine probably did actually help. And,
The moral of the story is keep antihistamine handy.
yeah, exactly. No. So the one thing is that what they did do is that she was on antidepressant medication, and over the next year, it just was horrific. She actually could not work. She would have as many as 12 prolonged orgasms a day, just spontaneously. But this prolonged thing, and she couldn't work, and it was ruining her life. And she finally landed up at the Institute of Sexual Medicine, because there's an institute for everything. And
I didn't know there was such a thing.
Yeah, if they got a clown college, you know that there's an Institute of Sexual Medication. So anyway, they could combine the two. Just think what you anyway. So the doctor.
No, don't even go there.
I don't know. Clown college and Institute of Sexual Medication. Oh, the joke's at hand. Anyway. So the doctor said that the chemicals in her brain were off and concluded that she was actually misdiagnosed as with depression, and the meds given for the depression had been causing this. So she was actually bipolar, and he changed her meds. And those meds work more on the gamma in the brain than the serotonin, and it lessened and eventually went from once a week to once a month to, stopping and everything back to normal. And apparently only 100 people, this was according to what was said on this program, 100 people in the world suffer from prolonged orgasms. And I'm just kind of confused as how this medication was. I mean, for her, it had just worked the opposite. Generally, if anything, that's going to stop people, those meds. So I thought it was just an interesting story. And it just had to do with sex and science. So, can't beat that. That's all I've got. That's all I've got on that story. So what do you got there? What story you got, PM?
Oh, well, I'm not sure I can follow that one, but we'll try. Oh, this is one of my favorite topics. Anybody in the chat room knows this. Ice cream, but not just any old ice cream. Glow-in-the-dark ice cream.
Nice.
From his lab in Buckinghamshire, England. Experimental ice creamist. Didn't know there was such a thing. Charlie Harry is creating ice cream flavors that make Ben & Jerry's look vanilla. He's made flammable sprinkles, not sure why, edible mist, even ice cream made from a fire extinguisher. But one of his new inventions will have you seeing ice cream in a whole new way, in the dark. Using an ingredient that you won't find at your local ice cream shop, Charlie Harry has created a glow-in-the-dark ice cream that lights up when you lick it.
Only when you lick it?
Now, I'm not really sure, the whole Charlie Harry thing. Something about Harry ice cream. It's kind of bothering me a little bit here, but his secret ingredient is synthesized jellyfish protein. He says he loves it when people think it contains jellyfish. It doesn't. It contains synthesized version of luminescent protein. Right now he is making a lemon and a vanilla flavor, but it could be made in any flavor. You could even have jellyfish flavor if you want it.
Ew. I don't want the jellyfish.
That doesn't sound too good.
That's really pretty kind of cool. I like, I think you and I had talked about this, where they're using that jellyfish protein in other ways. I have seen it in science labs where they're using it to detect the activity of certain cells, how they're responding, or and some other things. I can't remember what it was right now, but what it was do is they were able to follow along because it would light up. And it's all natural and doesn't affect anything. But I'm curious though, what's with the lights up when you lick it? Why wouldn't it just glow in the dark? If it's
I'm not sure about that part.
I wonder if he added something it has to be somewhat natural and a
It's got to be
digestible
something that it like activates it.
Yeah, I was going to say the warmth of your tongue could activate the whole
Then
thing.
it's not really going to be any fun unless you're eating it in an ice cream cone, because if you're just eating a dish of ice cream, what's that? I mean, it's not going to light up till it's in your mouth and you swallow it. Who's going to know? Okay, that's a dumb invention.
I don't know, but I can't help it because now I got that the first story stuck in my head, and I'm thinking glow in the dark ice cream. And
don't even think. Don't even go there.
Sorry, it just came to my mind.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we're getting your mind out of the gutter. Let's go to this other story. Did you know that?
Yes, please.
Google, your whole Google glasses thing is going a whole nother direction now. Google patents contact lenses that contain micro cameras. I'm not sure I like this. Talk about invasion of privacy and not even knowing. Add this one to the list of unbelievably cool things Google has in the works. It has filed a patent for a contact lens system that would include built-in cameras. The technology could potentially allow Google to shrink its wearable face computer, known as Google Glass, into the size of a single contact lens. Rather than be controlled by voice, those wearing the contacts would command their device through, as Patent Bolt analyzes it, quote, a sophisticated system of, quote, unique blinking patterns. In other words, people wearing these contacts may look even weirder than people in Google Glass.
Yeah, that would be a little odd because, and intrusive. Because, that, again, puts a whole new spin on things, because now people can be taking pictures of you and you won't even know it. So and I don't mean to be, but there's just really wrong people in this world and kind of sickos and stuff. Yeah, and you could have the one that's like, oh, I dropped something on the floor, kind of looks up under some poor unknowing woman's skirt or something, snap, or in locker rooms, this is really, really wrong, is with kids. But I'm going to have us both hold on this thought because actually we're going to have to take a break in a minute. I do want to get out real quick that before we do take this break, that I am giving a lecture at the Theosophical Society on May 15th, and that is located in Wheaton, Illinois, and also we'll be teaching classes there afterwards. So please go check that out. That information is also on the Paranormal MD Radio Show website. All right, now it is just about time. So go grab a drink and we'll be right back. Hello and welcome back. I'm Mary Marshall, your host, and you are listening to the Paranormal MD Radio Show live. If you have a question or a comment, the studio phone lines will be open after 9 p.m. tonight. We were talking about, we were talking about this whole Google contact thing. This should be illegal.
I think so. I think it's going too far.
Yeah, and it's just the type of technology is too. Here's the thing. Obviously, how are you going to know if anybody's, for the most part, wearing them? However, if you get caught with them or get caught taking pictures with them, then at least there is recourse for going after that person if it's made illegal. I don't think it should be legal.
No, I don't either. I actually am not a big fan of the Google glasses. So to go into the contact lenses, no, because there's no way you can. How can they ever monitor who has them and who doesn't?
Right. Oh, and
like
for that matter, could you imagine
too many people?
Sorry, I'm sorry. I was not.
Oh no, it's just too many weirdos out there, and you can't control it. It's just not a good fit.
No, and then what? I mean, it's just endless the amount of trouble that could cause. Because right now it's just cameras, but that's very soon afterwards there could be other types of live connections. Internet doesn't have to be a complete computer system, but there could be other things that go into that. You could have, how do you prevent anybody from cheating on tests, from, oh my gosh, there's endless, problems I can see with this. Now, what is good about something like this, that is not a bad thing, is having, when they were talking about this prototype contact lenses for like checking glucose levels.
That would be okay.
That's something that's helpful to people, and, has a really good purpose, and is not, I can't think of the word I want to keep saying, but invasive into people's lives. And
I'm all about that.
There's some very, sick, perverted people out there, and they could be, like I said, just taking pictures of children, and you wouldn't even know it. Oh, look at that nice man sitting on the bench watching the kids play. Okay. And it's something entirely different. I don't know. I'm not a big fan. I think I don't like the contacts. I think they should be illegal. And at least the glasses, you know what you're getting when you see them on a person's face.
Right.
You can be like, I'm uncomfortable, please take them off, or whatever, And those serve purposes, which is what Google is doing with them more now, because they aren't working as much in their favor as they thought they were going to with the general public. So they're now trying to gear those Google glasses towards medical fields, police officers, firemen, stuff like that, where they can use it in the course of their job. Now, again, there's a purpose. And, but that's glasses, again, not the contacts.
Right. The only good thing I can see with the contacts is, like you were talking, the glucose thing, but for all the bad, I think that it outweighs that one good.
One of the other things is that, now I know you have another story, and this one is pretty cool. So I don't know if we can, I'll let you just kind of read through that whole thing. And
the North London hospital scientists are growing noses, ears, and blood vessel story, that one?
Yes, that's cool.
Yeah. So they are doing this in a laboratory in a bold attempt to make body parts using stem cells. It is among several labs around the world, including the U.S., that are working on the futuristic idea of growing custom-made organs in the lab. While only a handful of patients have received the British lab-made organs so far, including tear ducts, blood vessels, and windpipes, researchers hope they will soon be able to transplant more types of body parts into patients, including what would be the world's first nose made partly from stem cells. It's just amazing they can even do this.
Yeah.
Last year, he and his team made a nose for a British man who lost his to cancer. Scientists added a salt and sugar solution to the mold of the nose to mimic the somewhat sponge-like texture of the real thing. Stem cells were taken from the patient's fat and grown in the lab for 2 weeks before used to cover the nose scaffold. Later, the nose was implanted into the man's forearm so that skin would grow to cover it. I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name. Cephalian said he and his team are waiting for approval from regulatory authorities to transfer the nose onto the patient's face, but couldn't say when that might happen. The potential applications of lab-made organs appear so promising, even the City of London is getting involved. Cephalian's work is being showcased on Tuesday as Mayor Boris Johnson announces a new initiative to attract investment to Britain's health and science sectors so spin-off companies can spur commercial development of the pioneering research. The polymer material Cephalian uses for his organ scaffolds has been patented, and he's also applied for patents for their blood vessels, tear ducts, and windpipe. He and his team are creating other organs, including coronary arteries and ears. Later this year, a trial is scheduled to start in India and London to test lab-made ears for people born without them. It's absolutely amazing.
It is amazing, and I that's the kind of things that I think we need, is that biological, as if possible, answer. The thing is, again, the thing with this is that when you have somebody have something like this is absolutely great, and people need this. I mean, if anybody is suffering and they need any of these things for whatever reason, and for anything that they come up with, because I've been, a lot of times I'm like, oh, this whole cyborgism and it just getting too out of hand. It can get out of hand. If you're going beyond replacing a hip, a heart, a body part here and there, and replacing the body. The same thing with this stem cell is this opened up all kinds of avenues, which is just wonderful to help people. But you have to kind of question that same technology. It's sort of like when not just Einstein, but a lot of scientists have said through the years, is like whatever can be used for good will somehow be used, as a weapon or be used for bad. So that's the only other thing. Do you think our technology, let me ask you and the people at home and in the chat room, do you think our technology is advancing at a rate faster than our laws and morals can keep up with?
Yes.
Yeah, I do.
Especially the law thing, because, for the most part, people that are good have the morals and they're going to use it properly or not use things at all. But again, you've got that one or, the few that ruin it for everybody else. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. It's, I mean, this has been kind of a topic that's kind of come up every time I'll bring different things up to friends or family with stories like this. I think that's the general consensus at this point, is that it's just advanced much further and quicker than we can actually keep up with it at this point. And that's why you do have so many of these actual ethicists, if you will, that are going over these topics and saying, we really need to start addressing this stuff now, because it's just going to get even more, more out of hand. I'm going to move. I was going to share a couple other stories, but I'm actually going to move this along to one of the last stories, because of course, I want to get to my fun. I like this fun thing I like to do, which has to do with
what, this is fun?
8 crazy laws that you could get you in trouble abroad. But we'll get to that one in a minute. There is one story that has to do, because it has to do with with biology and technology. There's a nanomaterial. We've been using nano has been helping us in so many different ways, and what they're doing now is a nanomaterial brings, this is the foldable, I'll get this, I'm laughing at myself. What can I do? Flat screen TVs, one step closer to reality. Now, about a couple years ago, almost, I had reported on, I think it's a mold type materials and technology, and was talking about this when I was co-hosting on an AM show at that point. And it's really moving forward now, that's for sure. So what this is foldable flat screen televisions are getting closer to reality as University of Houston researchers have successfully developed a new state-of-the-art stretchable and see-through electric conductor. The technology presents the potential not only for the development of foldable flat-screen TVs, but also foldable cell phones that you can easily fold like paper and carry under your arm or in your pocket, like a piece of paper. And according to this guy read, there were existing forays in the past that could have developed these portable things, and we've seen some of them at some of the tech shows in the last couple years ago. But however, finding a material that is resilient enough to the continuing of folding, unfolding, and the creasing and the translucency and all that sort of thing was kind of just out of their grasp, so to say. However, now that they have developed what is called a gold nanomesh electrodes that possess amazing electrical conductivity along with transparency and flexibility. So that is, they're calling it the Holy Trinity of foldable electronics. So that is something we can look forward to. So we're going to no longer have even our iPads and tablets and things like that. It's just going to be a nice little, almost like paper you can fold up and put in your pocket and take with you.
It's so weird.
Yeah, it's and I think that's pretty cool. That's something that we definitely will use, and again in various ways. All right, so now 8 crazy laws that could get you in trouble abroad. All right, so now we saw all the safety things they tell you about when you go places, but here are some things that you probably would never even think about, whenever would cross your mind. So the first one, is chewing gum in Singapore. Singapore apparently likes to keep its streets clean, and chewing bubble gum, now this specifically says bubble gum, I'm assuming it's gum, has been banned in Singapore for over 2 decades. 2 decades! While the only penalty is a fine, they're suggesting it's probably best to just respect the city's wishes. So could you imagine being a tour? I'm sure they would warn you, but you're chewing gum.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
They could find out the hard way.
I wonder what their laws are on smoking in public. Wouldn't it be odd if they allowed that and banned bubblegum? I'm just saying, I don't know, but
strange.
All right. Now here's another one, which this reminded me of the one we reported about in England, that you can't die in the house there.
Parliament.
Parliament, yeah. And I have no idea how to say this. It is a city, Sarpornix in France. They're not exactly sure how that one got enforced, but in the village of this Sarpornix, I have no idea. It's in southwest France. It is forbidden to die. And in 2008, this guy issued an ordinance stating that all persons not having a plot in this cemetery and wishing to be buried in Sarpornix, whatever, are forbidden from dying in the parish. And if they do, offenders will be severely punished.
Like you could punish them much more than 30. That's just as unreal.
I know. So if you don't have basically a plot in the cemetery, you're forbidden to die.
But if you have a plot, it's okay.
It's okay. But if you don't, they can apparently punish you. I'm assuming your family, because they can't really do a whole lot to you if you die. If I know I have only so much time left, I'm going there just so I can die in the streets, just to tick them.
Oh my gosh, that is just too weird.
All right, I'll let you throw one out there.
Well, did you know that while it was once a tradition for tourists to turn themselves into human bird perches, now this is in Venice, by holding out a handful of birdseed, the practice is sadly illegal. According to Europe Up Close, those who violate the rule can be fined up to $700.
Wow.
But, that's not really that uncommon, because I actually just saw a sign on the street going on the sidewalk in Chicago. People feed the pigeons in the city all the time. They think it's fun. But it actually is illegal in the city of Chicago also. It's like a $500 fine.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I literally just read that the other day because I work downtown, and I was running an errand for my boss, and there's actually a sign posted right by LaSalle Street. Do not feed the pigeons. It's against the city ordinance.
As long as they don't pass one, you can't feed squirrels, I'm okay.
You're okay.
Crazy squirrel lady over here. I got to feed my neighborhood pet squirrels. And it's so cute. They just had babies. And now these little ones are like, and I have this little call I do, and then all of a sudden I'll see a head poke around the corner like, hey. And it's actually to the point where the one was so cute, he ran to the wrong entrance, the one I usually feed them from, out by that one, the back one. And I'm like, no, this way, silly. But he was so trained, he just went right there. So,
aww.
All right. Now we are, I know. There is one last one. Just I'm going to get a heads up because then we're going to have to take a break. But is in Germany. Apparently, if you're on the Autobahn and you run out of gas, this is illegal.
You're going to get run over anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, while it's not technically illegal to run out of fuel, what happens is it's unlawful to stop for any other reason than an emergency. Well, running out of gas is an emergency. I mean, it's not like a life or death or your tire blew out, but it's an emergency. So I don't think it's something they really enforce, but nonetheless, yeah, that's a little weird. All right. So now, there's a couple things I do want to mention to you real quick before we do take this break. And that is, if you would like to find out more about the ongoings of the show or me, as well as past or future guests of this show, go to the paranormalmdradio.com. All show guest information, like guest websites, will have links posted there as well. You can also check out the community calendar and elsewhere on the site to find out where I may be lecturing or classes are coming up. And if you haven't done so already, people who are listening, come join us in the chat room. All right, we are going to have to take a break, and when we come back, we will be joined by Robin Modaffare, who is a shaman and medium. Stay tuned. Right back. Welcome back. I'm Mary Marshall, your host, and you are listening to the Paranormal MD Radio Show, airing live on the... I would like to introduce you now to our guest for this evening. Her name is Robin Modaffare, and she holds a master's degree in religion and a doctor in religious philosophy, as well as being a licensed minister. Many of her gifts include healing, teaching, shamanism, channeling, and mediumship. Some additional education and expertise that she brings to her practice are soul retrieval, angelology, ascension, and the Merkava, the Kabbalah, dream interpretation, and a whole lot more. Last year, she presented a series of classes and workshops and co-creative groups around the country. So, without further ado, hello, Robin, and welcome to the Paranormal MD.
Hi, Mary. It's wonderful and delightful to be with you finally.
Oh,
thank you for inviting me.
Well, thanks for joining me. You just know too much. I had to condense your whole little intro down. It would have been like, yeah, and she does. Do you sleep? My goodness.
I seriously doubt that. I know too much. And yes, sometimes I sleep.
Sometimes, right?
Sometimes I sleep.
Now, I guess I have so many questions for you that relate to explaining some of what these things are. I mean, you lecture and you teach on all of these topics that we're going to be discussing here. But before I get into those questions, how did your whole journey start for you? What led you to this point in your life?
Oh, my goodness. Well, that's a very interesting question. We have been talking about a lot of these specific, I would call them origin points of people's awakenings for quite a long time. I think the significance of them for all of us in our human evolutionary process, which is taking place on the planet right now, is or could not be overstated, because it is part of our blueprint, part of the reasons that we come to learn the lessons that we learn. So for most of your listeners, I would say that I think that this began for me quite early in my life, probably around my childhood, around age 7, when I first started to become aware of, I would say, kind of mystical things happening in my life. And most people would probably see them as unusual or delusional at best. But they began to become quite the norm in my, what I would call, ordinary or extraordinary life. So I began to ponder these things even at a young age, and I began to seek places that might help me explain that. So I could say that probably between 7 and 10 years old is when I really felt compelled from within to begin seeking what would eventually become my path and bring me to this point. That was religion at that point in my life. And it began to explain many things, connect me to some mystical understandings of things that had eluded me to that point. And I know that sounds really strange because I was merely a child, but I think that a lot of people in the world have very similar experiences. So anyway, that continued for some time, and I pursued religious studies, moved many times in my life. About every 1.5 to 2 years, I moved to a different state, a different school with different people. So that expanded me in a lot of ways and brought more exposure to connecting to very many different kinds of people, different belief systems, different social constructs, I would say, personalities, and made me kind of more sensitive, I think, to nature, to environments, to energies, to people. So
You kind of have to be, because of the
right.
constant change and input, stimuli coming in from people.
Yes, exactly. And I think that probably a lot of people who experience in the military, or just anyone who finds themselves having to cope with or acclimate to many different kinds of experiences and worlds and ways of being in the world, find that this really does stretch the boundaries of their sensitivity and their senses, their normal senses. So that happened to me in a big way. And I didn't consciously understand it at all. I would not say that I was conscious at all at that point in my life, and I think most of us are probably not. We simply come in with these things and begin to have experiences. So later, much later in my life, I would say, as I was approaching adulthood, is when all of that kind of broke for me. And I had a very powerful visitation, I guess you could say, an experience one night. And I would almost call it a supernatural more than a paranormal, because it was actually a physical, three-dimensional kind of being that visited me at probably the lowest point in my life. And I had been calling out for some direction, some help. And when this experience happened to me, it catapulted me, if you might want to say, into searching for an answer as to what that experience was. And coming out of religion, that was quite a traumatic thing, and it took me many years to find my feet on my path. So that's kind of how it began.
Are you comfortable telling us what that experience was, or?
Well, seeing as how this is the Paranormal MD radio program,
you're safe to tell us.
Yeah, I'm really pretty delighted actually to be here, because this is not my normal venue, as you might have seen by looking at my website and kind of the way that I work now. However, it is a very profound part of my life experience. And so I've had a lot of these kind of things that have happened to me in my life at very profound times. So basically what I experienced in that time was, coming out of what we would call the constructs of your normal human or belief systems, and having grown up with so much religious constructs around me, that movement, or that break from that type of thinking into a more expanded, limitless, mystical type of thinking was, I think, required something big, an experience that would really, really shake that structure somewhat, or break it down to reveal to me something that had not been in my awareness before. So one night I had, my husband and I were entertaining quite late, and we had a visitor that stayed till probably the wee hours of the morning and had left. And so we retired to bed, and I was laying in bed thinking about my life and feeling very lost and not really knowing how to reconnect to my spiritual life, having not much more to do with, what I would call fundamental religion, and wondering where I was going to go now, and feeling very, very empty. So it was kind of a dark place. And at that point, I started to pray. And I know this may sound kind of strange, but I was just asking for guidance and for help. And that had been a very, very close experience in my life. I've spoken with spirit almost all my life. So, yeah, I guess I normally do expect an answer, but that night I really did get one immediately. And so I was sitting in bed, and I heard the front door knob rattle. And I thought, well, that's very strange. Maybe the guy that just left forgot something. So, your conscious mind is playing all these games with you, and it's telling you, trying to make rational excuses for it. And my other mind is telling me, no, that's not what's happening here. And then all of a sudden, I started to hear very loud footsteps down the hall. And I mean, they were insistent footsteps, almost as though someone wanted you to be very aware that they were coming.
Right.
And purposeful. So I sat further up in bed, you know how you do, and got very quiet and breathless. And my husband, of course, was still sleeping. And I thought, okay, what am I going to do here? Somebody's in the house. And just then, about the time that I was beginning to think I'm going to have to move and do something, I saw a very tall figure kind of show itself out the top of the doorway and look into my room. And I remember it very vividly, and I'm very surprised that I'm actually even sharing this with you, but I intended to do so. Because our room was very well lit that night. There was a bright light post outside the room, and I remember thinking how very light it was in here. And I could make out the figure, and the figure was very, very tall. It had to be
Robin,
7 feet. Yes.
I need to stop you because we need to take a top of the hour break. And
Oh, fine.
Create good suspense for people. What is she going to say when we come back?
All right, thanks.
So everyone stay tuned. We need to take a top of the hour break, and we will be right back in just a few minutes. So before the break, we were in discussion with Robin, and I so rudely interrupted you just at the peak of your story. But you were telling us that you were in the house and that you had saw a tall figure, and that's where we left off. Okay. I want to know, what did you see, Rob?
Oh, well, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize about the break. So, this being kind of arrived at the doorway. And again, this is such looking back on this so many years later, because that probably happened to me in the late or mid 80s, 1980s, was when this journey all began for me. So it felt as though there was definitely I was in a moment of crisis, a place where my consciousness was truly being awakened, and they weren't, messing around with it at the time. It was happening in a very big way, and it was almost as though I had asked for this, cried for it from the depths of my soul, and the answer came, and here it is. And what are you going to do with it now? So this beautiful gift of a being that presented itself to me that night. It gently kind of looked around the door jamb and as if to say to me, and this is really interesting because it was a very telepathic communication, and I could almost feel it asking me if it was okay to approach me. It was being, very deliberate and very slow, and really taking its time as I was moving from one state of understanding and awareness to completely a different world. I would say almost a different dimension of myself. And so eventually I gave it permission. I sat up very, very tall in bed and held my breath and invited it in, and it came into the room. And it came up to me, and I thought, well, I'm being very brave. Maybe I can do this. And as it approached me, I could tell that it was going to lean over and touch me. And it did. It touched me on my upper arms. And when it did, there were many things that went on at that moment. One of them was sheer panic, and inside my mind I could hear myself screaming and thrashing and throwing covers, and it really felt as though that was what was going on. And the other conversation in my mind at the same moment was I could hear it saying, that it wasn't there to hurt me, it was just comforting me. And so, but I couldn't get a grip on my conscious mind. And so when the thrashing was over, I got my awareness back and realized that it wasn't in the room anymore, and it was dead silent, and the covers weren't moved, and nothing had happened, and my husband was still sleeping. And so I thought to myself, this couldn't have possibly been a real experience. And just then I heard to get up and turn the light on. And I thought, well, maybe this is an ET thing. It's missing time or something. So I went to the light switch, turned the light on, and I heard in my mind to look at my arms, and I did. And there were red impressions of hands on my arms, the finger impressions. Oh. So at that moment I knew I'm standing in, a lighted room with these red impressions, and I knew something had happened. I just didn't know what. And it was quite some years later, after that, I began to explore everything. And you wondered, you were kind of teasing me about all of the accreditations that I have listed there. And that's kind of all the worlds that I perused as I was on this quest to find an answer to what had happened to me. And that answer didn't come for probably, I think, about 3 or 4 years. So that's that story.
I have some questions for you, but we have a caller on the line. Welcome to the Paranormal MD. Do you have a question for Robin? And who is this? Hello? I see a caller there, but
there's a couple of phone lines, yeah.
Yeah, the one I know, the other one I'm not sure. Hello? All right,
Don't be afraid.
I guess they're not able to respond to us. Not sure. I would suggest if you could call back, because for some reason we're not able to hear you. So if you can hear us, hang up and call back. And they are in fact going to do that. So
okay.
hopefully they'll call right back. It's moments like that, and so many people have those, and often there's not, as you've just already said yourself, there's not just one. There's multiple things that happen to us that set us forth on a path or a journey that just profoundly change our lives.
Yes.
That obviously sounds like one that you had there. Now, when you did this, is this now what led you to the line of study that you did? I mean, that's some pretty intensive studying you did between those two, having the PhD in religious philosophy and then also your master's in religion.
Mm-hmm.
If I may ask you at this point,
of course, anything.
How would you describe your religious beliefs at this point, from having taken so much in from so many different studies?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's the first time I've ever been asked that question. That's very interesting. How would I begin to say this? Because this started so many years ago, and because the religious studies began as I was a young girl, when I know that I didn't make mention of this, but I was pretty serious about all of this at a very young age. And even at 10 years old, I was teaching vacation Bible school in the summers. And at one time had been sort of a pioneer, or what they would call done ministry or whatever for our churches. The thing I think I was looking for, and this might develop into an answer to your question, was a deeper relationship to a oneness, a place where I felt a part of everything. And I don't know how to put that in exact words, but I'm kind of designed to be what we would call a unity being. I work by, even now, coming into oneness with people when I do my counseling or I do healing work. It's kind of an unusual sort of experience. I don't use a modality or a tool. I've always been able to just join with a person, right? And reach into them and be able to experience what they're experiencing and move from there. So religion was kind of, I think, a platform, if you will, or sort of an instant arena for me to be able to be at peace, feel as though I belong to something, expansive. And I was looking for a very, very high way of expressing. So it seemed to me that relationship with God was a place where you could be unconditional and you could be truly loving and experience a sense of brotherhood and peace and all of that, which we all know comes with, a lot of, what's that word I want to use? Background or more revealed experiences as we all get older and begin to think more like adults, right? So you begin to see a lot more, but when you're young, you can experience so much of that in a very idealistic way. And for most of my life up until that experience that I had, most of my life had been experienced that way because that's how I saw things. So after that point, I began to step it all up, basically, and found myself and began to broaden that base that I got in all of that religious experience. And I would say maybe social experience, because I never really paid much attention to the labels of religion, but more the feeling of it. And yeah, so that's kind of what propelled me into some of the higher studies that I did, trying to use them as a bridge, maybe to help and support people who were experiencing very similar things to myself, coming into places of awareness and not knowing where to go with it, and how to create a relationship to, source or spirit or whatever it is that you feel is that beautiful light inside you, how to actually go about establishing that in your life again, having a relationship without having to have an institution.
Yeah. You know what? There's something when I think I first came across you, and there's sometimes the same thing, is that you just see it and you do have this light in you, and it is a guide.
Well, thank you.
Well, and I do. I really sense that, and I think that, again, the teaching and being there as a guide is that where you're at in doing that and in helping and assisting others is so valuable, important. Because I know even for myself as an individual, different things that I've learned along the way through the years, whether it had been in a spiritual sense or spiritual, religious, that's almost like a word.
We can make it a word.
We'll make it a word for tonight. Religious sense, and even just to do with the paranormal. So often I feel that I'm alone out there at that forefront trying to just figure it out. And but the thing is that when you do, with that being said, it also makes me reach out to other people then after the fact, because just sort of like you said, because people you're able to kind of connect and say, okay, I can help you with this, and I guess it's just that connecting kind of way. But wow. So a lot of it, because one of the questions, and I have to tell you, because we did get a couple questions in from the chat room, and one of them had somewhat to do with it, and they were asking if your faith ever conflicts with any of your paranormal views. You probably have. I'll let you answer that directly.
Okay. Actually, in this time, no, because where I've come to, I believe that the light that you were talking about is a light that is in each and every single one of us. And because of circumstances or conditions in our life, whatever that might be for each of us, as we journey on our path here as human beings and expressions of God, I believe that we're all here to do what we've come to do and experience what we've come to experience. But I do believe that it's a constant evolution. So here's how I feel anymore about everything. I believe that there is nothing in all of creation that is not spiritual. And I believe that there is nothing in all of creation that isn't an expression of love, no matter what it looks to be. And from the experiences and the things that I've gone through with this darkness of the soul, and some very, very high and amazing blessed experiences as well, which came along many years later, I have a profound feeling that belief is really the only thing that limits us, because everything is one. The experience that I had, some might call it paranormal, some might call it strange, some might call it out of the ordinary. But I knew that that was a visitor and a visitation of love, and that it brought me exactly what I had asked for, and had set my feet on a path that's led me to a place, and I truly do believe that every single one of us is held in guidance and direction, that innately within our own being, that light knows exactly where we're going and always brings experiences to us as we invite them to take us exactly where we need to go.
We have one last break to take, so I'm going to ask you to hold that thought, and then we'll be back. So
all right,
stay tuned, everyone. And welcome back. Thanks for joining me tonight. You are listening live to the Paranormal MD Radio Show, and I am your host, Mary Marshall. If you have a question or a comment, I have been speaking with Robin Modaffare, whose website, by the way, is embracingsource.com. Hi, Robin. Am I saying your last name correctly?
You're saying my name perfect, and I'm really quite astounded.
Why does everybody always get it wrong?
Usually, yes. And I'm very used to it. I'll answer to anything.
You know what? When I was married, I'm divorced now. When I was married, the last name, no one ever got it right, and it just became habit of, like, I would say it and just immediately spell it, and not like. But for picking up a prescription or something, but yeah, nobody ever got it right. And once probably, I think, every 3 years. I mean, that's how rare someone got it right. And I'd be like, "You must be related." That's you have to be.
They've seen it before. That was our last break, so we're good to go now to the end of the show. So no more interruptions. Yay! Well, I'm enjoying this very much. Thank you.
Oh well, I'm gonna push forward, and from where you kind of left off, because there's a couple here questions. This is from Marcellus in the chat room, who had asked about the faith and conflicts of paranormal views. To kind of put this question in the mix with that one is because you had mentioned this when you were talking about your experience, is that, do you feel that spirits, and I'm going to add the words in general, can read your mind, and if they can read your mind, use your fears against you? Pretty.
That's a good. It's a beautiful question. That was very wow. Thank you for that question. Actually, you're going to find me kind of an unusual person, because as a unity being, which Mary and I've been speaking about, when I address something like that, I usually address it at many levels, because we kind of are multidimensional beings. So what I would say to you is, my experience has taught me that at certain levels, yes, if you are the kind of person who carries a lot of fears, if your consciousness and your thoughts turn to beliefs around things being good or bad, evil, right or wrong, I believe that there's a lot of frequency or energies that we put out as human beings that other energies can pick up on. And yes, what I would call disincarnate or even created, with our thoughts, we can consciously create things to be as well. So there's many things, right? I'm sorry?
Like a poltergeist.
Yes, kind of like that, through energy and thought.
Yeah, they associate that often different than really what it seems that the source is coming from a human agent manifesting. So, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Right. No, perfect. That was perfect. And so there's a lot of different things that are going on, and human beings, we've been taught for so many generations and centuries that these are all the same thing, but they're not. They're coming from very, very many different sources. So if you are the kind of person who carries a lot of positive energy, it isn't impossible for these things to get to you, because I have had some of those experiences as well, when I've been extremely protected and not inviting any of those at all, and things have managed to come through in an experience. But the trick is, when that does happen, to not give any energy to them, because then the experience continues to feed. So, answer to your question, it is possible for those things to happen, but as long as you practice foundational things, or practices of light, practices of, higher thought processes, making sure that what you put into your life is not fear-based, it's more of a positive reality, that you're not looking back, you're looking forward, you're being totally present. A lot of those things begin to fade away, because I did move through a period of my life where I dealt with a lot of that, because I believe that as we awaken in this life, sometimes beings who are very, very light can draw a lot of that stuff to them. And it's not because they're negative or doing anything wrong. It's simply because it's a natural phenomena that dark is attracted to light. And whether it's either looking for union, for peace, for healing, for transformation, or just curious about you, your light shines very, very brightly in the world, and things will be drawn to you. So it's important to educate yourself and learn how to, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mary, because you would know a lot more probably about this area. But I think it's important for you to be very aware and conscious, and make sure you do your fundamentals of bringing in the light and being mindful of your thoughts and where your consciousness is.
Yeah, I agree with that, in the sense of often I will tell people who, whether they're investigators or not, paranormal investigators, but if they're going into some place, and if you don't know, you know that it's haunted, you've heard stories, but you're not exactly sure what you're going to be dealing with. If you are in any bad state of mind, there's some, depression or anger issues, don't go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's
yes.
You're just leaving. You're just going to be wide open and inviting trouble, and your own perceptions are going to be skewed.
Yes.
So you want to be really careful about that. And I think a lot of that, when you hear people talk about protection, is really much like what you just said, is that bringing in the light. And it can mean different things to different people, but it is placing yourself in a good state of mind and emotion.
Yes.
I mean, to me, I guess that's the easiest way to kind of, make that correlation with it. So again, because now here's another question, and this is kind of, do you feel having a positive outlook on things and personality helps create more activity in a location? I'm going to add to that and say, I think this kind of goes in general, what you're saying, by bringing in positivity and have an outlook, that is going to influence your entire life. So, right? I mean, it's the old, what you're projecting, and the whole, I can't think of the word I want to say. It's not aura. What you're going to attract.
Yes, definitely.
It's what you're going to attract. So if you went into a haunted location and you have a positive outlook on things and personality, and the question is asking, would this help create more activity? Well, if they're nice people, it would, I suppose. Or nice entities in there.
Yeah, that could be. I have never really experienced that too much. I have to say that I've done a few clearings and blessings in my life. I'm not an investigator like you. Most of the work that I do is at a very high transformational level, and I work with people in a different way. It's more at the soul level. So that world is not my expertise, but I do understand energy, and what you were saying just a moment ago about frequency and about how it the light moves into your field and it will actually vibrationally change you. I believe that is really where we're all coming to as these beautiful evolutionary beings that we are right now. The world is changing at such a fast pace. And as this is happening, what I've been noticing with the shadow world, I want to call it that, is that, for so long it was needed because you have light and you have dark. You have, an expression in duality that has to be what it was created to be in order for us to have the experiences that we have. And I don't know if this will make sense to most of your audience, but I'm seeing a lot of that energy now beginning to seek healing. So I have noticed that when a lot of this increase in paranormal interest and in, they call them ghost hunters or whatever, I know that you know what I'm talking about, house clearings and blessings and dealings with these other kinds of negative energies and things, that most of what Spirit has been telling me at the levels that I work is that they're seeking healing. They're seeking release and transformation and union with us. So your caller is actually on the right track in one sense, because when light walks into a place like that, anything in the vicinity of it that is seeking healing will look for you. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. And you know what? I don't think I've ever heard it said like this before. And that makes complete sense to me.
Yeah.
Because sometimes
it sees your light in that darkness, right?
It's you often, I think, question why certain, why are they there? What's the purpose? What's the point? Mm-hmm. All of a sudden there's more of an increase. And in general, there is an entire shift in the consciousness of people. So many. I've never noticed it like this since I can, since I've had memory, or heard about this or read about it in past times. As it is right now, it is just this movement, and everything is just, lifting to a higher level.
Yes, it is. And seeking to express in that place. And I think we're all kind of getting tired of, we've kind of done the duality thing to death. So there's a lot of energies that are seeking freedom, release from that, to be able to hold their own light. And when they see yours, it's natural for them to gravitate to you. The problem with most people is they don't understand that they can heal those energies. So rather than being able to turn into the experience and do what the energies are seeking, they become fearful and press it away.
What can the average person, or again, because there is going to be a lot of investigators, paranormal investigator type listening, can they do, or we do, that can help them heal?
It's really a very simple process, and it basically is doing a daily practice of making sure that you ground yourself in the light. You make sure that you establish, you can just visualize it, see it, completely wholly present in your own being, in your cells, in your bone, in your blood, in your, like you said, your auric field. Just see yourself in this beautiful, beautiful blue or gold white light. And when that embodies you and it's in your field, then you just call for What I usually do is I put like a gold rim of light, an additional rim around my being, around my energy field, so that any energy that is seeking healing, no matter where I go throughout my day, can be instantaneously healed, because everything is intention. And all you have to do is set the intention in love that that is what you desire, and that anything not seeking healing be sent to its proper place.
Okay. Does
that make sense?
Yeah. So I mean, like you said, first, obviously the grounding,
Mm-hmm.
Add an additional, I guess, like, light around you, but it's the intention of love to heal, whether it be entities from the other side or somebody that you come across in this realm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That healing will occur, and if it can't, they need to move along to either someone who can or help them, or otherwise, because it would start creating a drain for yourself, would it not?
Yes, it does. But as long as you're doing the protection around you, you don't normally have to deal with things that can take care of themselves. But when you were talking about your investigators, when you go into the kind of places that you go into and you actually come upon these sort of energies, the practice that I normally do and was taught by Spirit, at, I would say, the beginning of my awakening, was to do that establishment, put that light within you and put it around you, and to invoke the presence of love and the highest light possible to be with you, and to welcome the energies if they're there to be healed. And if they are, and I know you can use different words, because again, it's about your intention. So you can use whatever words are comfortable, but invite them in, tell them they're here to be healed. And it's just like, I know that many of you have done the practice of opening portals or doing certain ceremonies or blessings using, sage, clearing houses, whatever, to give these energies a space to come into with you. And you can actually, with your inner vision and your heart open, just take them across. You hold their hands and you walk them into the light, and you come back. And you will actually feel them move through you.
Wow.
So when you become more aware, you are, the light is the gate. And that's what they're looking for, because they're in darkness.
Okay.
I know this is probably really maybe strange, but
no, you actually are saying things to me, and again, it surprises me because I do have done this, and you hear so many people's thoughts or opinions. I've not had it said to me that way, and I really appreciate how you have explained this. Is that they are in darkness, not all, because now this is another question, because there are some that have gone into a light, are now at a high, vibrating at a higher level. They are able to come back and forth, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay. I'm thinking these things for myself, and I'm sure if I'm not the only one thinking them, so I'm sure people at home are listening, thinking the same thing.
Yeah, no, they are. Yes.
Thank you for that explanation.
You're welcome.
I have to ask, because this is something when we're now. This is angelic. Am I saying that correctly? Because it's not angelology; it's angelology, correct?
Angelology, yes, angelology. It's working with angelics, yes.
Okay. What does that mean? I mean, what defines them as angels?
Well, there's lots and lots of them, and because of, I don't know, I did send you an experience, but for many years, since about, a long time, I've been kind of an avid student of that, as many people have been, but I've actually had, along with my husband, some very physical experiences with that realm. So, that's why I say I do not believe that there is anything within creation that is not spiritual, that is not a part of creation, and it all exists for a reason. And so the study of angels is complex because there are so many dominions and orders of them and different kinds that have different functions and makeups and purposes. So angelology is basically getting to know them and understanding how they work, having a very, very deep knowledge of their processes and how they're created and how they work.
Because if I don't ask this, I know people are thinking this. Are the angels, because I'm aware of this, like you said, there's different levels, different places. Mm-hmm. What is the source of origin for them?
I know what you're thinking. I'm so glad you asked this question, because Spirit told me before you and I came together that this is something we were going to talk about. I know that on the earth plane right now, there's this beginning to be this consensus that we may have misinterpreted and misunderstood what angels are. And that is true. We have. However, they are not all aliens. Is that what you're asking me?
I'm leaving it open for you to answer.
Okay. I know that a lot of people are intimating that almost all of our angelic encounters or experiences might have been confused and were in fact perhaps truly angelic or truly alien experiences. What I would say to that is that is possible, that very many of them were misunderstood as we as people came to be where we are now. The other thing that I can add to this, and, again, I have no agenda with people, so, believe it or not believe it, it's fine with me, is the experience that my husband and I had many years ago where we were visiting his mother and went to bed one night and had this simultaneous experience where we actually had a physical and conscious and we were conscious in 3 states of being, or 3 different dimensional experiences at the same time. And all of them happening within the same space that we were in, which was a bedroom. And one state we were pure consciousness, another we were moving and traveling with the angels, and the other was in kind of a visitation of the earth plane. So this went on all night long too. And my husband is not a practitioner of these things with myself at all. So
was he freaking out?
he was actually doing a little better than I was, which was freaking me out. But it was quite intense, and I do have the recordings up on my website. I am in the process of writing a book that I've been writing for some years, trying to express this in its fullness. But what I want to say is that this experience that he and I had, we saw the angels. The host of heaven came down, and we were given a vision. I shouldn't even say a vision. We were there in the mid-heavens with them, looking at the earth plane from wherever we were and understanding what the earth plane was. And then the host would spiral down and envelop us, and we would go into the earth plane, and the angels would just go off and do what they were about. And my husband and I, as no body, but some kind of energy, would go about the earth and take some kind of inventory. And this went on, and I've written it in great description. But what I want to say is that I do know, and this is what they've wanted me to travel around the country talking about, is that as much as the physical plane and the material plane are a real thing, that there are many beings in other dimensional planes and worlds and levels of existence, that the spirit realm is alive and well as well. And that angels, the ones that we saw, were electric light and light. And they were pure spirit. They were not form or matter. So I believe that they both exist.
Okay.
And they are both interacting with us.
Okay.
And I know that's a very long explanation, but I could have been much more lengthy with it.
I was going to say, these topics are not something that you can answer in 2 sentences. So I totally understand. And now I know here, and I'm just because I know we're going to run out of time, but I have to get to this because this has actually been asked of me even before the show. You're studying the ancient mysticism of the Kabbalah, which is what Merkava, if I'm saying that correctly.
Right.
For those listening, I know, because it's like, how do you answer these easily? For those listening at home, what is that the study of? What does that involve?
It involves a lot of things. The ancient study, there's several different ones. The Merkaba is actually what you would call the study of the ascension body, or a vehicle, of light. There are some people who believe, what I know again is that we are a creation which has material expression and it has spirit expression, and both are alive and well and valid. So you have your Merkaba vehicles that are very, very much connected to what we call density. So they can be very physical vehicles, such as some people would call them UFOs or crafts. There are some that, and my husband and I saw these, they were very much a part of the experience that we had. I saw vehicles like those of every shape and size and color and energy and design. Some were neon colored geometry shaped things. Some were very, very dense heavy metal vehicles. Some were light vehicles. They were just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different types of what we call Merkaba vehicles. But when you get into the Kabbalah studies, it's really basically the teaching or understanding of how to raise the physical body into a body of light, almost like Jesus, Christ did, and many of our other ascended masters. And we're able to transcend physical matter, move like you were talking about, from spirit into matter and matter into spirit.
Right.
So your Merkaba vehicle is your vehicle of light, your light body, which helps you to be able to move what we would call almost experiencing multidimensional or in an omnipresent kind of way.
Okay. With all the different studies that you have, when you are referring to doing, let's say, dreams and dream interpretation, is that in the traditional sense? Like most of us, you're kind of growing up and it's like, oh, here's this dream book. Is that type of or is it more into something much deeper?
You can do it that way. Again, everything is kind of respective to the individual and what they can understand and comprehend. And today we've kind of pushed, I think, your listeners a little bit, because I don't believe there's any accident. You and I came together, and this is an opportunity for me to learn from you and for us to invite them to come to understand something a little bit more.
Yes.
So in the study of dream interpretation, there's, your typical interpretation, which is your basics, like you would teach the basics of any education or teaching. And then you have your, high school and college, sort of levels where you're getting into some deeper symbolism and understandings with that. What I do when I work with somebody is I go into what's called the I am of them. Okay, now this is what's a collective over self of consciousness. And so I look for them in this whole collective, and I allow their I am to help me to interpret the messages and the symbolism to them that will most serve them in the moment.
I just have to tell you, I love the way you explain things. I just
Well, that's novel too. Because that's not usually what I hear.
You're like, you just confuse anything, Robin. What do you think?
Thank you, Mary.
I do mean that. I do sincerely, because you know what? I think you're using terms and things that I just really closely relate to. When you start saying collective consciousness, and okay, I'm right there with you. I'm following along. So yeah, it's been great. I am going to ask you some, just kind of like shoot out a couple questions. We only have about 5 minutes left or so. But does everyone have their own guardian angel and or spirit guide?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to stop you. I'm not even going to let you explain the rest of it, because there actually is more. But what now, if because this has happened where people are like, I'm trying to get a name and I know that, there's a presence and I'm trying to identify them. Mm-hmm. Does everyone need to get a name of this guide or angel, deity, something? If you don't get a name, does this mean you don't have one?
No, it doesn't at all. In fact, it's a process to get the name, and it is possible. And I've been doing that for a very long time. But there's an agenda that Spirit sets up for us to get it. Now I've gotten pretty good, and usually they'll throw it to me like right before I go into session with somebody. they'll tell me who they are, and if they don't, this is what I would like to say, just so that they relax a little bit. There's also other ways they communicate to you. They communicate to you sometimes through what we call body signals. So if you've been noticing for quite some time that maybe the big toe on your right foot's tingling, or you've got a twitch in your eye, or you've been getting a stabbing pain in your side, or just anything out of the ordinary that's been coming for quite a long time, that a lot of times, and I would say very frequently, is the way that they are trying to communicate to you, to let you know that they are around, they're with you, and that you don't need to know their name, but you can just acknowledge their presence and begin to have a relationship and communication with them.
Because, and a lot of times there's different ones that will come in and out as they need to.
Yes, absolutely. That is very, very true. And that is almost always, because you will continue to grow and evolve, and they do have their specialties. So they will attach themselves to you as guides for particular places in your development or processes in your development or experiences. But, however, every one of us has what we call a master guide teacher, and that is a being that oversees all of your lifetimes, who's with you always.
Okay. I didn't realize that was for all of them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there is one who, and it will come and go, and as far as being a major presence in your life, it will take a back seat, so that these beings who specialize in certain places with you can come forth and create whatever the two of you are doing together.
Interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's Yeah, because I've actually sat down myself and I've done like meditation, and you become aware of certain things, but that in and out and just the whole name thing. And I'm like, well, I'm not getting any names, but I know somebody's there, kind of a thing. So
Yeah.
and I've talked to other people and they've questioned the same thing.
I just want to say one thing to you, Mary, that the name is becoming less and less important as we become more unity beings, because we're integrating everything we've ever been. So when they individualize themselves, they're just helping you to separate out again. And the
Okay.
point is that they want you to begin to trust your own knowing, your own inner self.
Okay.
Makes sense?
Yeah, totally makes sense. Before we end this show, I do want you to mention that you Robin has her website, which is embracingsource.com. Now, you're owner and director of this. What type of services do you offer to people? I know there's both spiritual, but also relationship counseling too, correct?
I do. It's part and parcel of whatever is the agenda for them when I meet with them, because your own spirit set up the agenda and I just follow directions. So I do answer your questions, but I'll weave in there what you most need to know as we go along, as you've noticed tonight.
Yeah.
I do soul retrieval work, which is kind of a lengthy explanation. I offer Skype workshops or sessions with groups and individuals. I do traveling workshops, teleclasses. You can go on my website and look at the services page, and it'll pretty much describe most of the things that I offer, personal intensives and retreats and things like that. So, yeah.
I like that one. I'll have
Yeah.
to. How far away do you live?
I would love to spend time with you.
It would be just like.
I want to hear your experiences.
Yeah, again, between the two of us, it would be like 3 days later.
I think so, definitely.
For those of you that are listening, nobody too often has a pad of paper to jot down these things anymore. Robin's website is on the paranormalmdradio.com. On the website there, go to guest after the show will be in the guest archives, but you can click through and go right to her website that way if you'd like to learn more. And Robin, I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show tonight. It has just been great having you here.
Oh, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this. Thank you, Mary. And it's funny because it's been a year in coming that we've been
I know.
working on doing this, and timing is everything. So I am so delighted to have had this time with you. Thank you for asking.
Well, we're at the end of the show. I want to tell you real quick that next week my guest will be Robert Beach, who is an inventor and robotics wizard. He also happens to be a paranormal investigator who makes much of his own equipment.